What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show. We're excited to talk 49ers football with you. I am your host, Marc Adams. You can find me at 49ers Camelot. And I'm joined by my co-host, Anthony Robertson, who you can find at 49ers Cutback. Ant, how are you doing?
Doing good. I was excited to, hear the news that the 49ers are making a move. And, it's one of those interesting things that a lot of people are expecting it to be a big time, huge splash move. And I think that we've been talking for a while that it was going to be somebody that made sense financially. And then, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they kind of inferred that it was going to be a long-term type thing too. And then they go out and they do something. And I think it's a positive move for the 49ers as far as it gives you an idea of what they feel about this team. They feel this team is a playoff contender. They feel this team can still win the NFC West, and they're not willing to close the door on it. But the reason that I like it the most is it just signals to everyone, the fan base, the team, everybody, that this season's not over. There's a long way to go. We know we lost a bad game to the Houston Texans, but the rest of the season is still looking bright, and I'm excited to see what they can do.
And it was a bad game. We'll get into that here in a minute. But first, want to talk about the moves that the 49ers made yesterday, trading for defensive lineman Keion White, who was with the New England Patriots. I think he's in his third season. He's like 26 years old, so still a young guy. They'll have him this season. They'll have him next season as well. It sounds like, he was drafted by Bill Belichick, looked decent as a rookie. Then his next season had a different coach. Who would have that been? Mayo? Is that who that was? I can't remember. And he had a good season. A lot of quarterback hits. I think he only had like 5 sacks, but he hits the quarterback a lot. So he's a pressure guy. And then this season, another new coach in New England, and I guess maybe they've changed up their defense or something, and he just was the odd man out and actually was a healthy scratch last Sunday. So what do you think about Keion White, his fit with the 49ers? I assume he's going to play this week because they don't have anybody else. So who do they have? They have that's healthy. They have Keion White, Clelin Ferrell, who we'll talk about in a minute.
Mikael Williams.
Mikael Williams.
Robert Beal Jr.
Robert Beal Jr. There's that other guy that has like 3 names that I can't think of his name right offhand, but I'll think of that here in a second. Maybe somebody in the chat will be able to tell me who that William Bradley King. But he's a practice squad guy, so they may have to, and Clelin Ferrell's on the practice squad. So that's probably the 2 promotions, I would think, or elevations for Saturday, because they don't have bodies and they need help. But what do you think about White and his fit for the 49ers defense?
Well, I think it's a good fit. I mean, you've seen 49ers use 5 techs in their scheme. And when I'm talking about a 5 tech, it's the alignment. And these are guys who play in the 3-4 as a defensive end. They're not playing the outside linebacker role, but they're playing the guy that lines up over the tackle. And that's exactly what he's done a lot. He's had a lot of snaps on the outside. He's had a lot of snaps on the inside. What you get is another versatile type player, right? The Charles Omenihu, and now Mikael Williams type player that you can kind of move around. Yetur Gross-Matos is built, the same way. Now, Gross-Matos goes about 265. When you look at White, he's huge, 285 pounds. This is a guy that can absolutely stop the run, can play inside a little bit more. I think this gives Robert Saleh a versatile piece to use, and I think he's going to be more successful once he learns Chris Kaceric's defense to be able to rush the passer and you stop the run on the way to the quarterback. I think that method's going to work for him. But you're right. Last year, 5 sacks for White. That just proves what his talent is and what he can do. And 5 sacks is a welcomed addition to the 49ers. And I think that this is going to be one of those big things where you're a week or 2 away potentially from having Yetur Gross-Matos back and Bryce Huff. And then when you start looking at this defensive line, well, once again, you can go out there with a NASCAR package and get some guys that can do some things on the inside. White is going to be a problem athletically for guards, but he's got enough strength to be able to bully them a little bit too. So I think that this was a good move. 49ers have had him on their radar for a while, because I remember last year the same conversations were going on. Chris Kacerek talks about he finds guys in the draft that he likes, and then he follows them and sees what they're doing in their career, waits for an opportunity, and this seems to be a really good one. And there's no risk with this. This is no risk, high reward. You get him for 2 years, which means same thing as Charles Omenihu. You had him for an extra year, and you can really use him in that time. But financially, too, he's basically getting nothing this year. He's already been paid out by New England, and then next year it's super cheap as well. So this is a fantastic move by the 49ers. The compensation works. The fit for the 49ers defense works. I think this was a very smart, shrewd move by John Lynch, and exactly what I was expecting, something that was going to be financially beneficial. But the part that they got it really well was how young he is. This is still a very young, ascending player. He just didn't fit with what Mike Vrabel was doing there in New England, but he fits with what Chris Kacerek wants to do in San Francisco.
Yeah, so here's a tweet from Nick Wagner of ESPN 16 hours ago. 49ers currently healthy defensive ends: Mykel Williams, Keion White, Robert Bill Jr., William Bradley King. Now, he must have put this out right before the Clelin Ferrell news. Sam Okawanu's day-to-day with an ankle. He could be available on Sunday, but right now, who knows? And then you mentioned Bryce Huff and Yetur Gross-Matos. Okay, now, what do you think about the addition of Clelin Ferrell, who I think when you and I started this podcast a couple of years ago and he was on the team, I think that we discovered that he pronounces it Clelin Ferrell. And so I don't care how you say it, if it's Ferrell, whatever, Clelin, we'll just call him Clelin. What do you think about him coming back? Because he obviously knows the defense, knows some of the players and everything, and the 49ers know him. This is more of a guy that can move around a little bit, right? Or is he pretty much just an edge guy?
I mean, I think he's going to play on the edge, but he can move inside as well. He's got some versatility. The one thing I love about Clelin Ferrell is the fact that he can play the edge and stop the run. That was one thing he did in 2023 that I think really hurt the 49ers when he got injured going into the playoffs. They were missing him in that playoff run that got him to the Super Bowl. There's questions. I mean, he was playing so good as the base defensive end. He might have helped them win the Super Bowl. That's how big of an impact he was making. And he's not going to kill you with pass rush. He got 3.5 sacks the last 2 seasons, but that's consistency, right? 3.5 in 2023, 3.5 in 2024, playing for the Washington Commanders. But what you're going to get is a nice firm edge. He's going to play the run well. And then occasionally he's going to get after the quarterback. I think when you're looking at the 49ers depth, that's exactly what they need. So a couple weeks ago, when he got released from the Chargers practice squad, I started saying, hey, I think Clelin Ferrell would make a lot of sense. And so I do believe that. I said this yesterday. I thought they should sign Clelin Ferrell. They did sign Clelin Ferrell. And I think that this is a very good move for them. And now they've added a couple more pieces. And with Ferrell, he's on the practice squad. I expect him to get elevated. But you brought it up. He understands this defense already. He's a plug-and-play guy in Chris Kacerek's scheme. So this is a guy that can make an instant impact, and they need instant impact. To me, he's very Sam Okawanu-ish. Where he plays well against the run. Now, I think Clelin Ferrell's a way better run defender than Sam Okawanu. Okawanu's not bad. I just think Ferrell's that much better. But right now, Ferrell's a guy that's produced more than Sam Okawanu and some of the other guys, especially Robert Bill Jr. So this is a great move for the 49ers. Once again, another shrewd move. Bring somebody in that understands, and hopefully he can make an impact. And, of course, he's trying to impress teams around the league. But I think the 49ers might have just got themselves a really solid player that they needed, because this is still a first-round talent. And so I think this is going to be impactful.
All right. Thanks for everybody that's in the chat with us. Also, thank you for everybody who's watching or listening. But those that are in the chat, see some questions. We'll get to those here shortly, I promise. One of the reasons that the 49ers are making these moves is because they have had a plethora of injuries. With the amount of injuries, especially the soft tissue, because some like what Bosa had, what Warner had, those things, even the Brock Purdy injury, some injuries are inevitable because it's sports, right? And this is a violent game. But the 49ers have a lot of soft tissue injuries. And to me, I feel like a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of them can be avoided. They've got to make a move once the season's over. They've got to do something with the strength and conditioning staff, right? I mean, do they deserve most of the blame, part of the blame, none of the blame? I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but I just feel like they have to make some kind of change.
I think everybody kind of wears it. You know what I mean? I think this falls on a lot of people. I'm sure the strength and conditioning, that's the easiest target because the injuries and who works with those guys on the daily. But let's not forget that these players also are spending, thousands and in some case millions of dollars in taking care of their bodies. And they're working with specialized coaches and trainers and different sports and conditioning. And they all have their own ideas. One of the things that these guys talk about when they're rookies is when they come in, they talk to the veterans about what the veterans do to recover. And as you age, it gets a little bit more important. And as George Kittle, for instance, has aged, he's put more time and money into his body, yet it didn't stop him from getting a hamstring injury. So I think that there is some for the strength and conditioning and the way that you go about it. It kind of wears on you. I think that the league, as far as the Players Association, needs to wear some of this as well. They've changed the method at which you do training camp and some of the practices. I think that's part of it. I think there's also a push to get bigger, faster, stronger. And with the new training techniques, it pushes these players to the limits, and they're more likely to kind of push something a little bit too far. So I do think it's kind of on everyone. I wouldn't be surprised to see the 49ers make some adjustments again to their strength and conditioning because they suffer more injuries than anyone else. But I do believe that there's a lot of things that go into this and a lot of people that need to wear it. And I think players themselves, some of them were maybe ill-prepared. Some of them maybe worked a little bit too hard. Everyone's trying to figure it out. But I think if you canvass the league, you can see it all the way around. There are injuries all over the place. It's been pretty ridiculous, but I think it's because of the training methods and how these guys are pushing themselves to the limits.
Yeah, we've been talking defensive line, so I want to get to this question from Lori, and thanks, Lori, for that super chat there. Here's the question: do you guys have an update on Valdez, Sebastian Valdez? Is he too raw to be thrown into this D? Yeah, that's a good question because he does seem like maybe he would be, especially considering the injuries, that maybe bring him in there, see what he can do. But for some reason, they're not ready to bring him up.
Yeah, I mean, he was the practice squad player of the week last week. He's been doing some things. I think when it came to Sebastian Valdez, it's the decision of, is he going to stop the run consistently? That was really the thing he's deficient in right now. He does a very good job rushing the passer, especially for a young guy. I think he is a developmental player. And I think they like him. I don't think they want to lose him. I think they see an opportunity for him to be somebody down the road in the future for this football team. But yeah, there was a lot of development that needed to happen when it came to stopping the run and just being able to anchor against double teams. We're already seeing Kevin Givens. He's really struggling big time when it comes to that. And we're seeing some of the other guys, Alfred Collins as well. So he's just a young guy learning. But I think at some point, I don't know if it'll be later on in the season. My guess is it'll probably be next year. That's where we'll see Sebastian Valdez have another opportunity. And the way that he works and the way that he prepares, I expect him to make a bigger impact. But that is a guy with pass rush upside that they're going to need next year. Maybe he is the replacement for Kevin Givens, who's in the last year of his contract and could be moving on.
Want to get to this question from Joe Carmack. So is it Bill and Williams at edge? Yes, I think that if Sam Okwanu is not playing on Sunday, it's going to be Michael Williams and Robert Bill Jr., which is scary to think about. But hopefully Okwanu's going to be good to go, but I don't know. Doesn't sound like he's going to be available. So I would expect Williams and Robert Bill Jr. to be the starters. What do you think? I'm on to something there, or you think I'm not?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and Mikael Williams is going to stop the run. I think the one thing interesting about that group that you're talking about is they can stop the run effectively. Robert Beal Jr. did a good job against Houston Texans setting a firm edge. He does that. He just doesn't rush the passer well. Well, that's not a big worry because when you get to third down, you could put in Keion White, you could put in Clelin Ferrell, and you could go to some of these other guys. That's easy, kind of turn those guys loose and let them play. But, I mean, with the way things look right now, Keion White is going to have to go out there and make an impact in day one, and probably Clelin Ferrell as well. I don't know if Sam Okuwanu is going to be ready to go or capable. And so I think that, for the base downs, it'll probably be Mikael Williams and Robert Beal Jr., former teammates at Georgia, and they're going to be expected to stop the run. And then you're going to bring in those other guys to rush the passer, no different than what you've been doing. And so I don't think it's that big of a deal. But, Beal Jr. is going to get more snaps than I think anyone was hoping he was going to get this year.
Joe also asked, why was CJ a scratch last week? I think that he's dealing with an injury. I don't remember what it is, but I'll try and look it up here in a second. But do you remember what kind of injury he's dealing with?
He originally had a hand injury. He had surgery, so he was wearing a cast. I think it came down to needing Nick Zakelj, right? They needed Nick Zakelj for the offensive line because you lost Jake Brendel, so they needed that. And then you needed Trevis Gibson to rush off the outside. So it came down to a numbers game, and they elected to go, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, with Alfred Collins and Kevin Givens, a 4-man rotation, which is the norm for interior defensive line. So I think that's probably what happened. It was a numbers game for CJ West. And we'll see if he gets back out there again. But once again, they're going to have to elevate probably Clelin Ferrell or, like you said, Bradley King, one of these guys as a defensive end. And so it's tough. And that makes some of these guys you wish were inactive, because I guarantee they'd rather have a rotation on the defensive line with CJ West in it than with him not, because he's given them some good snaps.
He also asked, does CJ have any edge experience? I don't think he has the body for edge, but you know that stuff more than I do.
Oh yeah, no, he's not an edge defender. In fact, he's not even like a 5 tech, right? This is a guy that's completely inside. He's a 0, he's a 1, he's a 2-eye, he's a 3 tech. That's about the extent of where he goes. So no, he's not making it outside at all. That's just not what he's built for, lengthwise, size wise. He's not built for that. But I like him in the interior.
All right, I don't want to spend too much time on the game against the Texans, but I do want to know, when you went back and looked at the tape, what went wrong? I mean, the offense was bad, the defense was horrible. I don't like some of the things that Robert Saleh did. He's been great all season, but this wasn't his best moment. A lot went wrong on both sides of the ball. What did you see that really jumped out?
Well, I thought the offense did the defense no favors. Anytime that you get a time of possession that's so lopsided, that means the defense is out on the field a lot. And I think that's what you saw in the fourth quarter. 49ers are down 1 score. They need a stop. They're completely cooked. They're already dealing with the lack of a rotation. Sam Okuwanu's out. Jordan Elliott's out. D. Winters is out. They're dealing with a situation where how are you going to get a stop when you're rotating 3 defensive linemen in the interior and 3 edge rushers on the outside? Snaps were starting to build for those guys. And I thought early in the game, the offense's ineffectiveness really hurt the defense. Now, it wasn't the greatest game for Robert Saleh, but remember, this is also Robert Saleh's first game trying to deal without having a legit pass rusher like Bryce Huff. At least when they had him, they had a chance for a whole shot, somebody that could win, somebody that the offense had to pay attention to and slide protection his way or chip him. You didn't have anyone in this situation, and none of those front 4 were really putting pressure on C.J. Stroud. So he tried to get creative, and part of that creation was going to some of the looks he went against Atlanta, bringing some of the blitzes, dropping some guys out, running a little bit more man coverage, and we've seen them struggle. And when he put a little bit of pressure on his safeties to make some plays, they did not come through. There were some opportunities to get off the field. Even the first drive, Jair Brown missed a tackle. So it was a little bit of the players' ineffectiveness, but Robert Saleh having to overcompensate for not having Bryce Huff and that really put them in some tough situations. And then you tip your cap to CJ Stroud. He did a pretty good job finding the open guys. When the 49ers needed to execute tackling in the secondary, they just couldn't do it. So I didn't think it was all bad from Saleh. I did see some things in there that you wish weren't great. The good news is 49ers in the red zone defensively only allowed 1 of 5. That's why they didn't get blown out. They stayed in the game, and that just proves how good of a defense they can be if they're healthy and if they have a little bit of pass rush. They had none.
Whoever kidnapped Juwan Jennings, we need you to return him. He has not been the same guy since he returned from the injury. And I don't know, maybe he is kind of alligator arming some over the middle throws. And if he does have 4 or 5 broken ribs, whatever it was he said, that would probably make me want to protect myself and alligator arm some passes. But he just doesn't seem right. I mean, he's not even blocking the same way. And do you think that it's injury related? Do you think that it's contract related? I mean, to me, he wanted more money. He didn't get it. And I feel like if he would have played at the level that we're used to seeing him play, he could have made himself some money this year, in free agency. I feel like he's costing himself money in addition to hurting his team. Multiple penalties, drop passes, although the one that he caught at the 1-yard line was a great catch. But he just doesn't look the same. Do you think it's mainly just the injury?
I think it's part of the injury. I think some of it was missing training camp, right? He's not in full rhythm, and then the injuries didn't really help him get there. And I don't think him and Mac Jones have a real chemistry together. They haven't been able to figure it out. I mean, we've seen even, open throws where Mac Jones is kind of throwing it behind him a little bit. He's having to make a circus catch. Then there's times where Mac Jones throws it perfectly, and then Juwan Jennings can't make the play. You just don't feel like they're on the same page all the time, and that's tough because you need Juwan Jennings to make a lot of these big-time plays, and he hasn't been able to. And there's something as simple as him being able to rub a defender in a situation where the Texans brought a blitz. All he had to do was run into and get into the way of Jalen Petrie, and you're going to get a play inside for Kyle Juszczyk for a first down instead. Everyone's covered, and Mac Jones gets sacked, and then your drive is basically over. So I think that, yes, he's missing on some of the little fundamentals. It doesn't look like the normal Juwan Jennings that we saw. And then I think that him and Mac Jones really just don't have a chemistry. I don't know if they'll figure it out. I don't know if that's because he missed so much training camp, right? Mac Jones he worked with Kendrick Bourne in the past. That's chemistry. And then he worked with a lot of these other guys as part of the second unit during training camp. So that's probably part of the reason he has better chemistry with them than he does with Juwan Jennings.
Why is Jair Brown starting over Marquez Siegel? Marquise Siegel? I just don't see it. I've been hard on him for a couple of years. You know that I have a couple of guys, Jake Brendel and Jair Brown, that I'm kind of hard on, and I just don't see it. And then I saw this tweet from John Chapman earlier in the week. Jair Brown allowed a perfect 158.3 passer rating when targeted versus the Texans. He also led the team in missed tackles and had 2 more missed tackles that didn't count because he couldn't get close enough to touch the ball carrier. What am I missing? Am I just glazing over the really good things that he does? Or is this a problem? I mean, is Marquise Siegel really not better than Jair Brown?
Well, I think the problem is you kind of look at these safeties and there's no complete safety right now. Jair Brown, they put him in for coverage purposes. That's really why they put him in. And then, of course, this week he got cooked. But if you look at what he did against Atlanta, there were some moments where, he was successful. He had some successful moments in coverage. The one area no one can argue is Marquise Siegel is a far better tackler than Jair Brown. I was actually shocked to see Jair Brown make a couple of the plays he made around the line of scrimmage, which were fantastic. But the first drive I was talking about, they threw the ball underneath the Braxton Berrios. This is exactly what Robert Saleh wants, right? Put pressure, get rid of the football, and then you expect your safety to come make the tackle 2-3 yards short of the stick, force the field goal, and you get off the field. The only problem is Jair Brown whiffed. He didn't make the tackle. There's another situation where Malik Mustafa has Dalton Schultz. All he has to do is tackle him ahead of the sticks. Doesn't break down, runs right by him. Those are the kind of things that frustrate you, and those are the moments you go, why can't Marquis Siegel be in there? Because Marquis Siegel's made those plays this season. The problem is Marquis Siegel is also a guy that struggles in coverage. But if Jair Brown is going to struggle in coverage, you might as well put Marquis Siegel out there. At least he's the better tackler. He'll make those plays and get you off the field. So I don't know exactly. I never knew why exactly they went to that Jair Brown change when they did, when Malik Mustafa was coming back. But I'm not sure it's the best way. I think at some point Marquis Siegel might find himself right back in the lineup, because I do believe as long as he could get a little bit better in coverage, he's the most complete safety the 49ers are going to have.
And he's only going to get better. At this point, how much better is Jair Brown going to get? But I don't want to pick on him too much because I'm sure he's a great guy. How does Mykel Williams look to you on film? Because I keep hearing people just really bash the guy and say he's not worthy of a first round pick. He's not getting to the quarterback enough. I mean, if you go back to those early games when Nick Bosa was there, Mykel Williams was around the quarterback a lot, and he was making an impact. He's a rookie. The season's kind of gone on, so he's probably getting tired. I would assume. Rookies do hit a wall at some point, which I think is probably too early for him to hit a wall. But I think that he's better than what we're seeing right now. But I don't know. What are you seeing on when you watch the film? Because I don't think that he's that bad.
No, I mean, he's still setting the edge well against the run. He plays the run well. I think he's lost his cast of characters. We knew coming into this season, he's not a guy that's going to rush off the edge like Bryce Huff or Nick Bosa and be able to bend the corner and get home. That's not really his game. He was going to win with some power, some strength, a little finesse here and there. But really where his strength was going to be was rushing from the inside. They had a whole plan. Bryce Huff, Nick Bosa on the outside, Gross Matos, Mykel Williams from the inside. Mykel Williams would probably have a lot more impact if he had those other guys around him in his rookie season. It's tough when you're a guy built like Mykel Williams is with the plan that they have to be able to succeed on the inside when they know you're the best pass rusher left. And I think that's what happened to him, especially this week. They gave him some more attention, and that's a smart way to go about it. And I think he's going to develop into a nice, consistent edge player for the 49ers. I don't think he's ever going to be that double-digit sack guy. I think he's going to be a guy that sets the edge, plays really well against the run, is a nice complement to Nick Bosa, who can generate some pass rush from the inside. And I think that's what they always knew they were going to get, and they were okay with that. He's the Eric Armstead of this defense. That's what they wanted him to be, a base defensive end that moves inside and rushes the passer. And Armstead would usually come up with 5, 6, 7 sacks in the season. Of course, 2019, the big year, because he had all those guys around him. But that's really what it is, and I think that's what they always expected from him.
We talk a lot about the rookies each week, and part of it's because the 49ers are in a situation where they need last year's rookie class to step up. They need this year's rookie class to step up. They're going to need next year's rookie class to step up. Jordan James hasn't played yet. I kind of would like to see Isaac Guerendo be inactive and see what Jordan James might bring to the team. Jordan Watkins finally got on the field, dropped his first ball. Then later, when the game was pretty much out of reach, did catch a pass. So I think that we'll see more from him. I think that it was kind of a tough situation for him. He hasn't played all season. Then he's thrown in there in the second half. Mac Jones throws a ball that's a little high, but it definitely was catchable. Went right through his hands. The other rookie that we've talked about some that hasn't played much is Nick Martin, the linebacker. Is he really not better than Curtis Robinson or even Luke Gifford? I mean, I know that he's probably a little raw, but gosh, man, he has so much upside. I just would like to see him get in there and play some on defense.
Yeah, he does have a lot of upside. I mean, when you're talking about quick twitch, explosiveness, Nick Martin's got it. I mean, that's what he does well. I think that they're just trying to limit mistakes. And right now he is still raw. And I think you saw some good plays from Luke Gifford. It wasn't a good game a couple weeks ago, but this week, Luke Gifford played pretty well, actually. Some good coverage moments, some good things that he did with the run. And with Curtis Robinson, it's about not making mistakes. I mean, they had that one play, they threw the ball out to Woody Marks, and he just scampered along the sidelines for a big old, huge, explosive play because Tatum Bethune missed him. And I think that's what they're trying to limit. They're trying to limit these mistakes that can go for explosive plays. This is how this defense is built. They want to be, a 2-safety high shell, a quarter shell, and they want to keep everything underneath. They want to make you be methodical going down the field to bend and don't break. I'm not sure Nick Martin right now, they feel comfortable that he understands his defense well enough to not make those mistakes. Once they do, and they feel like he's not going to make the little trivial mistakes, then they can start using his athletic ability to get him in there and have him create, because I would love seeing him in the Gifford role coming off the edge. I would love to see that. I think that would be impactful. I would love to see him blitzing. He's explosive. He's fast. He should be more dynamic in coverage. But that was something when I watched him at training camp, he was slow to develop on, was the coverage steps, the drops, getting into the right place, keeping his eyes in the right spot. So it's just a development thing. But I love the fact that he's on the sidelines playing special teams now. I think that's going to be good. And at some point, I'm not even counting out the second half of the season, he could end up getting in there and making some plays.
All right. Let me throw out a couple of things that I'm seeing on X from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, saying that the 49ers are among the teams interested in Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson. He noted up to this point, the Bengals have rebuffed trade inquiries, and sources have maintained that Cincinnati has no plans to trade Hendrickson right now. It's interesting that that they're still being linked to Hendrickson. I don't think the Bengals are trading him, and I don't think the 49ers are going to go get a big fish like that. What do you think? Well, actually, first, this is kind of along the same lines, and then I want to see what you think. This is from Coach Yak on X. Dan Graziano is confident the 49ers are not done making trades despite trading for Keion White yesterday. Here's what Graziano said. I know they've been calling around about pass rush help. They got some Tuesday with White, and they've been known to be active and creative at the deadline in the past years. I'm feeling confident they'll do something beyond what they've already done. What do you think about these two statements? I feel like the 49ers will make another move, but I think it's going to be more of a rotational move.
I think it's possible they make another move, especially when you look at the compensation that they gave up. They really didn't give up a whole lot, and so they can still be somewhat aggressive. I still don't think it's going to be a big move. So I don't think they're bringing in a big time fish. If it would be different if they were sitting here, 8-0 or whatever that was, and they were like dominating, and then they needed that piece that they thought could get them over the top. Then
or they had Fred Warner.
Right. They had Fred still, you're willing to go sell the farm a little bit to potentially get you a championship. That's not where they're at. So I expect the move to come. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not an interior defensive lineman. I think that's a possibility. They've had a lot of question marks about their offensive line. I've heard that there could be some interior offensive linemen available. That's a little bit more difficult when it comes to chemistry and learning to play together, but not out of the question. So, yeah, I do think that there's some moves out there. And who knows? If the safeties don't start playing better, they might need to go get themselves a safety that could come in and give a little bit of help, because I think that is a real weakness right now for this 49ers defense.
Here's another Coach Yak tweet here, quoting Jeremy Fowler, who believes that the 49ers could possibly trade Juwan Jennings. Here's what Jeremy Fowler said. Much is made of Jacoby Myers' trade prospects out of Las Vegas, but let's not forget about Juwan Jennings, who also asked for a trade in the offseason over the lack of a new deal. Despite nearly 1,000 yards in 2024, Jennings is off to a slow start this season, ranking 5th on the 49ers in receiving. Both sides could use a fresh start. Do you see a scenario where the 49ers could trade Juwan Jennings?
I don't think it's out of the question. The question marks are going to come down to, do they feel like they have enough in the wide receiver room? I think right now, if you traded Juwan Jennings, I don't think you do, because you don't know for sure. Brandon Ayuk is supposed to come back, but they're going to open his 21-day window at some point, and we're going to see where he's at. If he was capable and we knew he was going to be Brandon Ayuk the way he was before, then yeah, you might consider it. I would never count it out, because they could always get something for the future, which we know that they're really excited about the future of this team and building the roster. So if they got something that was going to be here for a few years for moving on from Juwan Jennings, that's possible. But Kyle Shanahan also doesn't want to run the risk of not having enough offensive weapons. And It's not like this offense is tearing it up right now. They're averaging about 20 points. I know that Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings really do have a chemistry. And so if Brock Purdy is coming back soon, and I believe he is, then that makes a lot of sense to kind of keep them, especially if you're planning on committing to going to the playoffs. You don't really trade away good players unless you're going to get something really good back.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. If Brandon Ayuk was fully healthy, and I don't mean the season after a major knee injury, I'm talking a couple of seasons after. If he was that healthy and Ricky Pearsall was really healthy, which who knows when Pearsall is going to be back. It seems like it should be soon, but then he's not practicing. He's not playing. If both those guys were healthy, then I could see the potential that they might do that. But you mentioned it at this point. I really doubt that they're going to do that. Let me get to this question in the chat from Chuck. If Spencer Burford is back, would you play him instead of Pooney or Trent so they could rest their knees this week and try to get healthier for the Rams and the rest of the season? Yeah, I get what he's saying here. You can't afford to drop a game to the Giants because you do have the Rams next, and I feel like they're going to lose that game to the Rams. I just feel like they're undermanned right now. Maybe if they get Pearsall and Purdy back, and Bryce Huff comes back and Gross-Matos, then yeah, they'll have a good shot of beating the Rams. But man, Fred Warner is the Ram killer, and you're playing without him now. So I don't know that they would win that game. And so because of that, you can't lose this game to the Giants, because a 3-game losing streak is going to really hurt your season.
Yeah, I don't think they would do it to get Pooney out of the game. I think that they've got a question mark with left guard. I think right now, left guard Connor Kobe, to me, I just don't think he's been that good recently. I thought that this was one of his worst run blocking games that he had. Lots of ineffectiveness, plays that could have been big plays for the 49ers in the run game, not really successful. Then they go to Nick Zakelj in obvious pass sets, especially that last drive of the first half. He was successful there, but not overall successful. Those guys are not the answers at left guard. You've got 2 guys right now with their window open. You got Spencer Burford and you got Ben Barch. Ben Barch is the guy that was starting at left guard. I think either one of those guys starting this week at left guard against the New York Giants is the best situation for the 49ers. So I do believe that Spencer Burford and Ben Barch are back in the next week or so. I think Burford probably this week, and then probably Barch next week, maybe. So I think that that's what they're working towards, and that's what they really need to do. They need to make Connor Kobe nothing more than a break in case of emergency type situation. He's just got more development, and he's got a lot of experience now, but we're still seeing some of the same mistakes that we've seen, and the 49ers need to make sure they limit those mistakes. And I think getting a solid left guard will be one of the ways to do it. So I like the idea, but I think Burford, better chance of playing left guard initially, and then probably just back to his tackle role. And what that also means is people might lose their minds, but Austin Pleasance, he might be, he might be gone, and Drew Moss might be gone as they're trying to make roster space, as they might try to get Drew Moss to the practice squad. The Austin Pleasance one, I think, is inevitable, and maybe I'm wrong, but when they signed Andre Dillard to the practice squad, and he was somebody they had in camp that can play guard and tackle, that versatility, what that means is now if Austin Pleasance doesn't come back to the practice squad, you have Dillard that you can kind of move up and down, and that's exactly what they need.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit of Giants. Obviously, they're going on the road to the Meadowlands to play the New York Giants, which who are a better team than we thought initially when the schedule came out and you and I did our show where we went through the schedule, who has the advantage. We said the 49ers had the advantage in this game against the Giants. I still will stand by that, but that advantage is much slimmer. In this matchup, where do you see the 49ers having the biggest advantage?
49ers have the biggest advantage when it comes to their running game against the New York Giants. New York Giants' run defense is one of the worst in the NFL. They give up nearly 150 yards per game on the ground. Wow. And we've seen what happens when the 49ers go against a run defense that's ineffective. You've seen what they did against Atlanta. That's the kind of game the 49ers need to go out there and have against New York. New York has got guys. I mean, they've got dudes on the D-line. They got a really good interior pass rusher. They got guys on the edge. But when it comes to stopping the run, they don't have the linebackers. They don't have the safeties that can fill consistently, and you can get some movement up front. So I think that's the advantage for the 49ers. Also, you look at the red zone. 49ers offense is coming on in the red zone. New York Giants red zone defense, terrible. They give up touchdowns at 68%. That's actually the worst the 49ers have faced in the last few weeks. So there's an opportunity for the 49ers to move the ball on the ground and then consistently be able to score when they get in the red zone. They're a perfect 4 for 4 over the last 2 games. If they can keep that going and go touchdowns to field goals against the Giants, they have a really good chance to walk out on Sunday with a win.
What concerns you about playing New York? Where are they strong that could give the 49ers problems?
Yeah, for me, it's Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is the one that's kind of concerning to me because his use of his legs. And that's one thing we've seen the 49ers struggle with. And now that you don't have Bryce Huff and you don't have these speed elements coming off the edge, I worry about it. We've seen C.J. Stroud get outside the pocket and outrun Mikael Williams and those guys to the sidelines and kind of pick up some of these first downs. And I've seen Jackson Dart be able to do that a ton. I think he's a much more athletic player than C.J. Stroud. He's got a kind of the mindset for it. And so I worry about him. I don't think he's going to kill you when it comes to completion percentage. He's under 60% this year. He doesn't really turn over the football a whole lot, but when it comes to using his legs, that's one of the problems. So I think for Robert Saleh, it's all about keeping him in the pocket and making him beat you with his arm to, they're missing guys like Malik Neighbors out there on the outside. So I think that's one of the keys, but I do worry about him escaping the pocket and being able to create. And then with Brian Dabble, some designed runs as well.
Yeah, Howdy 49er said MetLife Field turf is my biggest concern. Yeah, at this point, who knows what's going to happen. But, it is interesting when you look at Nick Bosa's injury came on the Levi's field. Brock Purdy's injury initially happened on turf, but then was aggravated at Levi Stadium. So I don't think that, this year they're getting hurt everywhere. So I think that we all have those memories of 2020 when the 49ers played. What was that? Was that back-to-back games that they played on that turf?
It was, yeah.
And that didn't go well. So going to New York to face the Giants, are they going to come away with a win?
Well, right now the 49ers are favored. Right? FanDuel has them at a -2.5. So a 2.5-point favorite on the road. I think that that kind of leans into what people think about the New York Giants right now. And I think that the 49ers do have an opportunity to win. I think that, one of the things I was concerned about is the pass rush. Maybe they can generate a little bit more pass rush with the Keion White trade and also with Clelin Ferrell. Maybe they can generate a little bit more pressure. Maybe Robert Saleh has learned a little bit about what he needs to do. I think also the injury to Cam Scatterbo is actually impactful because of the energy and kind of the juice that he gave that offense with some of those physical runs and the blocking that he was able to create. So I think they got a good shot to win this football game on the road. It's never easy to go on the road in New York. It's going to be a black and blue game. I believe that it's going to come down to who's more physical. And I think the 49ers, if they can establish the run game, they're going to have an opportunity. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Brock Purdy, if he's going to be capable of going. So we'll see. But I think either way, whether it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, the 49ers should have the capabilities to win this game. And I think it's going to be a tough one, but I think they can get out there with a win. And then, like you said, week 10, Los Angeles Rams come to Santa Clara, and that's going to be a big one.
Before we take off, why don't you tell us a little bit about FanDuel and what you're doing there?
Yeah, right now, FanDuel is the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. And every week, you can go and find cool player props. I've been finding some cool player props last week. Bet Kendrick Bourne over 40 yards at plus 141, and it was successful. Bet the under, that was successful. So there are definitely things you could take advantage of, some cool same game parlays and stuff like that. So FanDuel's always a good place to check out if you're into betting. If you're not, well, that's understandable too. But if you feel like doing it, FanDuel's a good place to do it.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And for those that are listening or watching later, we appreciate you as well. Thanks especially to those that were in the chat with us. They really had things rolling, and it's always a lot of fun to watch that. Thank you, Ant. Good stuff, as always. And hope everybody has a great rest of your week, and we'll be rooting for the 49ers to go to New York, come back with a win. We got to have that as we get ready to face the LA Rams. Thanks, everybody.